There's a moment that happens in the quietest part of your mind, a moment you'll never admit to anyone else, sometimes not even to yourself. It's the moment when you reach for something you desperately want, when you stretch every fiber of your being toward a dream that feels just inches away, and your fingers close on nothing but air. And in that split second, in that hollow space between wanting and having, something inside you whispers a lie. A comfortable lie. A lie that sounds like wisdom, but tastes like ash. I didn't want it anyway, you tell yourself. It probably wasn't even that good. And just like that, you've become the fox standing beneath the grapes, walking away with your head held high and your heart breaking in silence. This is a story that's older than any of us, a fable that's been passed down through generations, because it touches something raw and real in the human condition. Aesop knew it 25 centuries ago, and you know it now, even if you've never put words to it. The fox and the grapes. A hungry fox sees beautiful, ripe grapes hanging from a vine. He jumps for them, again and again, stretching himself to his absolute limit. But they are just out of reach. So he walks away, and as he does, he mutters to himself, "Those grapes were probably sour anyway." It's such a simple story. A children's tale. But there's something devastating in its simplicity, something that cuts right to the bone of who we are when we fail. Because this isn't really about a fox or grapes at all. This is about you. This is about me. This is about every single person who's ever wanted something they couldn't have and then convinced themselves they never wanted it in the first place. This is about the stories we tell ourselves when reality doesn't match our expectations, when our reach exceeds our grasp, when we come face to face with our own limitations and can't bear to look them in the eye. Let's be honest about what happens in that moment of failure. You apply for your dream job, the one you've been preparing for, the one that feels like it was made for you. You craft the perfect application. You rehearse every answer. You walk into that interview with hope burning in your chest like a star. And then the rejection email comes. Not even a phone call. Just a cold, automated message thanking you for your interest. And something shifts inside you. That company probably has a toxic culture anyway, you tell yourself. I heard they overwork their employees. I'm better off without it. You say it with such conviction that you almost believe it. Almost. Or maybe it's a relationship. You meet someone who makes your world feel bigger, who makes you want to be better, who sees you in ways that terrify and thrill you all at once. You take the risk. You open up. You make yourself vulnerable in ways you swore you'd never do again. And they walk away. They choose someone else. Or they choose nothing at all. Or they just fade into the background noise of your life like they were never really there. And you sit alone in your room, scrolling through their photos, and you start rewriting the story. They had red flags I was ignoring, you tell yourself. I was settling anyway. I deserve better. And maybe that's true. Or maybe it's just the most comfortable lie you can find. This is the psychology of sour grapes, and it runs deeper than we want to admit. It's a defense mechanism, a way of protecting our fragile egos from the crushing weight of inadequacy. Because here's the truth we don't talk about: failure hurts. Real, actual, physical hurt that lives in your chest and keeps you up at night. And our minds will do almost anything to avoid that pain, including distorting reality itself. We rationalize. We minimize. We reframe our desires as things we never truly wanted, because admitting we wanted something and failed to get it means admitting we're not enough. Not smart enough. Not talented enough. Not lovable enough. And that admission feels like dying a small death. So we lie. We tell ourselves the grapes were sour. We tell ourselves the job wasn't right. We tell ourselves the person wasn't worth it. We tell ourselves the dream was unrealistic anyway. And here's the insidious part. Sometimes, after we tell ourselves these lies enough times, we actually start to believe them. We rewrite our own history. We convince ourselves that we never really tried, that we never really cared, that it didn't really matter. And slowly, imperceptibly, we become people who are terrified of wanting anything too much, because wanting something means risking the pain of admitting those grapes might actually have been sweet. But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about individual moments of failure. This is about the person you're becoming. Every time you rationalize a failure instead of acknowledging it, every time you tell yourself the grapes were sour instead of admitting you simply couldn't reach them, you're building a wall between yourself and growth. You're creating a version of yourself that's protected from pain, but also cut off from truth. And truth, uncomfortable as it is the only thing that can actually set you free. Think about what happens when you can't admit you wanted something. When you can't look at your own desire and say, yes, I wanted that. I wanted it desperately. And I failed to get it. When you can't make that admission, you can't learn from the failure. You can't analyze what went wrong. You can't build new skills, or change your approach, or grow into someone who might succeed next time. Instead, you just walk away, telling yourself it didn't matter, that you didn't care, that it was beneath you anyway. And the next time something similar comes along, you'll be exactly the same person you were before, no wiser, no stronger, just more practiced at lying to yourself. And here's the part that really hurts. This pattern doesn't just protect you from pain. It robs you of joy. Because when you train yourself to minimize the things you can't have, you also diminish your ability to appreciate the things you do have. When you tell yourself the grapes were sour, you're not just protecting yourself from the sting of failure. You're also teaching yourself that wanting things is dangerous, that desire itself is the problem, that you're safer if you just stop caring so much. And that way of living, that constant self-protection, that fear of wanting, it turns you into someone who's too afraid to reach for anything at all. You become the person who watches other people chase their dreams and says, those were probably sour anyway, while secretly wondering what it would feel like to be brave enough to jump. This is how people sleepwalk through their entire lives. They experience one painful failure, they tell themselves one comfortable lie, and then they spend the next 40 years avoiding anything that might make them feel that way again. They stop applying for jobs they're not certain they'll get. They stop pursuing people they're not sure will love them back. They stop dreaming dreams they're not guaranteed to achieve. And they call it wisdom. They call it maturity. They call it being realistic. But it's not wisdom. It's fear wearing the mask of pragmatism. It's the fox walking away from the grapes and calling it dignity. Here's the moment where everything changes. What if you could look at the grapes and admit they were sweet? What if you could stand there, under that vine, and say out loud, I wanted those grapes. They looked delicious. I tried with everything I had to reach them. And I failed. What if you could make that admission without letting it destroy you? Because here's what happens when you stop lying to yourself, you become free. Free to actually assess what went wrong. Free to ask the hard questions. Was I not tall enough? Then maybe I need to find a ladder. Was the vine too high? Then maybe I need to choose different grapes. Did I not try hard enough? Then maybe I need to push harder next time. These are questions you can only ask when you're honest about what you wanted and honest about the fact that you didn't get it. These are the questions that lead to growth, to change, to becoming someone who might actually reach the grapes next time. And yes, this honesty hurts more in the moment. It's easier to walk away and call the grapes sour. It's easier to protect your ego and rationalize your failure. But easy and good are not the same thing. The pain of honest failure is sharp and clean and temporary. The pain of self-deception is dull and chronic and lasts forever. One kind of pain makes you stronger. The other kind makes you smaller. Think about the people you admire most in this world. The ones who've achieved things that matter. The ones who've built lives that inspire you. Do you know what they have in common? It's not that they never failed. It's that when they failed, they looked at it directly. They didn't call the grapes sour. They admitted they wanted them, admitted they couldn't reach them, and then they figured out how to jump higher or find a ladder, or plant their own vine. They transformed their honest failures into fuel instead of pretending those failures never mattered in the first place. Here's what I want you to understand, really understand, in a way that changes how you move through this world. You are allowed to want things. You are allowed to want them desperately, passionately, with your whole heart. And when you don't get them, you are allowed to be devastated. You are allowed to feel that loss, to acknowledge that pain, to admit that you tried and fell short. That admission doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And more than that, it makes you someone who can actually grow. Stop calling the grapes sour when they were sweet. Stop minimizing your dreams to protect yourself from disappointment. Stop pretending you didn't care about the things that broke your heart. Because every time you do that, you're not protecting yourself. You're imprisoning yourself. You're building a smaller and smaller world where you're safe from failure, but also safe from any real success, any real joy, any real life. The next time you reach for something and come up short, try something radical. Try the truth. Say it out loud. I wanted that. I tried for it. I didn't get it. And it hurts. Sit with that hurt. Let it teach you something. Let it show you what you need to change, what you need to learn, what you need to become. Because that hurt, that honest acknowledgement of failure and desire, that's not the end of your story. That's the beginning of your transformation. The fox walked away from the grapes and called them sour, and in that moment, he guaranteed he would always be a fox who couldn't reach grapes. He chose the comfort of self-deception over the pain of self-improvement. Don't be the fox. Be the person who admits the grapes were sweet, who acknowledges they couldn't reach them, and who comes back with a ladder. Be the person who transforms honest failure into fuel for growth. Be the person who wants things enough to feel the pain when they don't work out, because that's the only kind of person who ever achieves anything worth having. The grapes were sweet. They were always sweet. And you deserve to taste them. But first, you have to be brave enough to admit you want them, honest enough to acknowledge when you fall short, and determined enough to keep jumping until you finally reach them. That's not self-deception. That's not rationalization. That's courage. That's growth. That's the only way to build a life that actually matters. So stop lying to yourself about the grapes. Start telling the truth about what you want and what it will take to get it. Your real life is waiting on the other side of that honesty.